Of Left Right Radio with yours truly, Chuck Morse. The case for impeachment, the Trump haters are really ratcheting things up right now. It's getting really ugly out there, and they mean business. They want to take President Trump out. They're not interested in opposing him on political grounds because they know they'll lose that. So instead, they just want to destroy him. I fear for his life. I pray for President Trump every day. And, it's out of my control, just as this local guy here, and out of anyone's control, I suppose, ultimately. But all I can do besides prayer, which is very important, is I can discuss the significance of the Trump revolution, what it means, the import of it, so that if, God forbid, President Trump is taken out by some very fierce enemies, we can continue the fight. We can continue to turn the tide toward freedom, toward national sovereignty, toward democracy, and toward individual rights. Now, what is the latest with Trump? Now we've gotten used to Gestapo-like tactics. I mean, they're raiding Paul Manafort's house at 4:00 in the morning while he's still in bed with his wife wearing pajamas, and they're ransacking after breaking the door down, when in fact he was cooperating with them. Now they've raided his lawyer's house and his hotel room in Manhattan, that being Cohen, and they're going through files and taking out confidential lawyer-client privilege communications, not just of President Trump, by the way, but of all of his clients, and they're basically nailing him to the wall. This is a threat to all lawyers. It's a message, certainly, to not help Trump, because this could happen to you, but it's a threat to anyone who hires a lawyer for defense if they're involved in a problem. Now your records can be seized by the federal government, by the feds, who can go in, grab the records, and hurt you, possibly put you in prison due to confidential communications between yourself and your lawyer. Where are the lawyers? Where is the ACLU? Where are the civil libertarians? There's only one that I've really heard talk out about this, and that's Alan Dershowitz, and congratulations to him for doing so. Now, they're going to try to, this has nothing to do with the Russia probe either. They're going to try to find something about his Access Hollywood tape, and they're looking into his personal life, which is really despicable. I mean, did they look into John F. Kennedy's personal life or Bill Clinton's? Well, in the case of Bill Clinton, they had to, because he lied before a federal judge. But, this is stuff that happened before he was president, and it's nobody's damn business. Did he pay some hooker because he had a one-night stand? I have no idea, but it doesn't matter. It is no one's business. And to hear these people on progressive radio, people like Michael Signorilli and Stephanie Miller, these paragons of virtue, prattling on about, they think it's a big joke. Look what Trump is doing. I mean, really, whatever happened to, common privacy and decency? The media kind of generally has looked the other way in situations like this. I'm not saying it's good, but it's not relevant to the presidency of President Trump. And it has nothing whatsoever to do with the Russia probe, which is what these people in the Mueller group are supposed to be looking at. And by the way, they are directed by a Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, who is supposed to report to them and control the parameters by which they operate. And he hasn't done a damn thing to stop this. He's giving them basically a green light. And to my way of thinking, he is very much a part of the problem, the deep state attempt to have a coup d'etat. Now, a couple of days ago on this program, because this is Left-Right Radio, and I like to interview people on the left, I had on American University professor Allan Litchman, who authored a book called The Case for Impeachment. And I just want to respond a little bit to that. And, look, I don't really want to criticize a guest, but you have to see this. I mean, the guy was absolutely a hothead and a partisan hack. I've never seen a more skewed look at history. He's supposed to be an esteemed historian of presidential politics, And I get the fact that historians have their biases. I have my biases. We all have biases. But to have things so skewed and to be so like shutting down of any opposition, that gets into an area of real professional ethics. And I think that he crosses that line. He absolutely flipped out when I mentioned, for example, the business of the Obama administration getting a FISA court to give them permission to wiretap and to surveil, I should say, the Trump campaign using that phony dossier. That's what flipped him out. That's when he hung up. He literally shut down the computer and walked out. He could not handle my mentioning that. But in the course of the conversation, he brought up the points made in his case for impeachment, which he published immediately, either immediately before or immediately after President Trump's inauguration in January. And I'm going to comment a little bit on those. The first point that he says is that, Trump is involved in this conspiracy to collude with Russia to help him win the election. Now, that's something that it's completely unproven. It seems ridiculous on the face of it. What the hell would Russia have to do with anything? Why would Russia help anybody? I mean, if they were going to help anyone, they'd probably help her. And there's certainly more evidence that Hillary Clinton and her campaign colluded with Russia. But of course, Mueller's not looking into that. And when I say that, it's been even admitted by the New York Times that it was the Hillary Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee that actually paid Michael Steele, the British spy, to put together that phony dossier against Donald Trump, and that he got his information from the Kremlin. So, I mean, is that not more open evidence of collusion? Then, of course, the phony dossier was used by members of the Obama administration, particularly James Comey and Rod Rosenstein, by the way, whose fingerprints are everywhere, on getting the FISA court to issue a warrant so they could spy on the Trump campaign and gather more dirt. So there's no evidence of collusion on the part of Trump with Russia. There just isn't. And if there were, at this point in the investigation, which has been going on for well over a year, we would probably know about it. Even Maxine Waters, the most virulent hater of Trump and the biggest pusher of impeachment, has admitted this as well, that there's no evidence. And, and yet they continue to forge forward. Now they've got Comey out there with his book, and, he's, these nasty, really awful comments about Trump personally. And the guy obviously is a nut. I don't even want to, dignify it. But so the first case that Litchman makes is about collusion with Russia, this conspiracy theory that they're keeping alive, and they'll probably beat that drum all the way through every day he's in office. No proof at all. Second point he makes is obstruction of justice, because President Trump asked Comey and he asked a couple of other people to hurry up these investigations, particularly against Michael Flynn. General Flynn was unceremoniously dropped from his office, and he was then attacked by Mueller and his pit bulls. And what I would say to that is that the only way a case could be made for obstruction of justice is if, in fact, there was collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. If there was collusion, then yeah, there was obstruction of justice. If President Trump did appear to try to shut down the investigation, at least with offhand private verbal comments. It wasn't quite the same as a formal, attempt to do so. He just was suggesting it in a private conversation, the way businessmen tend to do. But you could make the case for obstruction of justice. However, if there was no collusion, then there's no obstruction of justice. All there is a president simply saying, look, this is a phony investigation. Could you try to wrap it up? It's getting in the way of my administration, my ability to function, my ability to conduct normal relationships with Russia, and it's hurting the country. So get on with it, get it done. You're hurting people, and see if you can wrap it up in a timely manner. So that's perfectly normal. That's not collusion. I mean, that's not obstruction of justice. His third charge was just so ludicrous and so asinine that I almost don't want to comment on it. And that is that President Trump is in a war against women. I think he borrowed that from the Mitt Romney campaign. Wasn't that those charges cooked up by the Fenton Agency in Rhode Island, this ultra left-wing ad agency that did studies and decided the best way to get Obama reelected was to come up with this quote unquote war against women and hang that on Romney and Republicans. So that's absurd. It's ridiculous. A women, earning less. I mean, is he somehow oppressing women? I mean, his claim to back this up was that he slept with a prostitute 10 years ago, this Stormy Daniels. I mean, that's a war against women. I mean, first of all, it was consensual. And secondly, there's nothing illegal about giving her hush money. That's apparently something that happens all the time. I mean, I'm not saying it's good, but it's not impeachable. It's personal. And it's stuff that happened many years before he ran for office. So it's not really relevant to anything. And it's embarrassing, but impeachable, really. As far as war on women is concerned, I would suggest that Trump has helped women just like he's helped men by advocating tax cuts, by getting rid of onerous regulation of business so we can get into business again, by making the world safer, by defeating ISIS and taking out chemical sites in Syria, and by bringing Kim Jong-un to the table and possibly ending the North Korean nuclear threat. So I would say that all in all, those things are good for women and men. The fourth charge is this canard that's brought up by the left, that Trump violated the emoluments clause of the Constitution, which says that a president, and I think it also includes congressmen, cannot directly profit from their position in public life. In other words, they can't use their position as a president or as a congressman to get money. Now, let's not even talk about the Clinton Foundation with Hillary as Secretary of State. That's a whole different subject. Talk about corruption and talk about emoluments, all put into this separate entity, of course, right? This slush fund. The actual issue of emoluments is this. I mean, President Trump has not violated the emoluments clause, I would argue. President Trump is an international businessman. He's got businesses and properties in at least a half a dozen, if not more, capitals of nations around the world. Those businesses make a profit. They made a profit before Trump was running. They made a profit while he was running, and they make a profit today. It only becomes an emolument if the profit is somehow untold, if there's something more than just conventional profits, and that can be tied to President Trump's position. And I'll just give one example. Let's say the Trump Tower of Constantinople or Istanbul charges $1,000 a night, which is like a pretty good price, I would think, for a hotel room. And then President Trump becomes president, and all of a sudden, this guy comes in and he pays $10,000 for the same room, even though everyone else is paying $1,000. And that he's doing business with the Trump administration. That's an emolument, okay? That's impeachable. That's criminal. It's not criminal. I don't think it's illegal, but it's an impeachable offense because you could show that Trump had accepted a gift directly above and beyond, or even his company, above and beyond what they would otherwise get because of his position as president. Well, that hasn't happened. And the fact that he would be attacked for being a businessman with a hotel in Istanbul that accepts money and that's profitable, it's more than an attack on him. It's also an attack on capitalism, which is what it's a dog whistle to appeal to the far left and their hatred for private ownership and for business. Anyway, so these charges are spurious and specious, I should say, and wrong. And it's it's discouraging to see that they're ratcheting it up now, and that these people mean business. They're going to try to take him out. They don't want to wait till the next election. They don't want to do it the way they should do it under the Constitution, which is that if they don't like Trump, run a candidate against him and win, and present ideas, because they don't have ideas. They want to just do it, the thug way. They want to do it the way they do it in in dictatorships and in banana republics. They want to overthrow the government, basically. Anyway, those are my thoughts today. I want to thank you for joining me in this special edition of Left Right Radio, and have a good afternoon.